Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exclusive here on the Drive YouTube channel. And boy, oh boy, what a week it has been in the NFL. They're making so much noise right now, and the regular season is just days away from beginning. So the regular season isn't even here yet, and we're just getting headline after headline after headline, with this whole Tom Brady mess. And then a few days right after that, we get hit with the news of Tim Tebow being cut from the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, I can't say I was surprised by this. Everybody saw it coming. If you didn't expect for Tim Tebow to be cut by the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend when the preseason has finally ended and teams are making moves to make the official roster right before the regular season started. If you didn't expect Tim Tebow to be released at some point this weekend by the Eagles, then you're just out of it and you're not in touch with the current world that is the NFL. I saw this move happening. I was talking about it with my good friend Cody, who's also putting on a video for you guys on the drive as we speak. And it's just everybody could see this coming. It was obvious that it could happen because Tim Tebow, he's just not a dominant quarterback. He's just not the overall typical quarterback that the league looks for, that a team would want to have. And as far as Tim Tebow is concerned and why the Philadelphia Eagles released Tim Tebow, well, Chip Kelly released a statement earlier today, and here's what he had to say. He really improved his throwing motion from when he was throwing a couple of years ago, Kelly said. He worked extremely hard on it and deserves a lot of credit for that. I talked to him a little earlier, which was today, when we released him. He just needs to get more playing time, get out there and get actual reps, because he has done a ton on his own from an individual basis, but it is about taking that next step and playing in the game. So that's why Tim Tebow was released by the Philadelphia Eagles. Chip Kelly did not feel like he was good enough. He made progress. He said he made progress, but he just felt like Tim Tebow wasn't good enough to be the third string quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Here's the problem with Tim Tebow, and here's why he's never getting a break. Here's why he's never staying on the team officially. Teams look at Tim Tebow, and this is the truth, what I'm about to say here. Teams look at Tim Tebow when they sign him, and because of how marketable he is, because of how big his name now is in the world, and how familiar he is with the media, these teams, when they sign him, they expect him to perform and deliver and give them good results. They look at him and think that, he should be higher valued. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chip Kelly and the Philadelphia Eagles in the preseason, instead of looking at Tim Tebow as a backup quarterback, they treated this situation where they wanted Tim Tebow to probably play like a starting quarterback. And when you do that, you're going to be disappointed by the results because obviously you're not going to get, a starting quarterback result from a Tim Tebow-like player. Tim Tebow is by no means a starting quarterback, but most teams, everybody in the media, they talk about this guy so much that it's almost like they have to regard him in the class of a starting quarterback role because they think that he fits that role or they expect him to reach that goal. And that's the problem. You're never going to be satisfied with Tim Tebow if you look at the guy and you compare him to starting quarterbacks like a Tom Brady and anybody. It doesn't even have to be a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning. He doesn't have to be looked at as amongst the greatest, but they look at this guy as if he should be a starting quarterback for a team. And so when you look at Tim Tebow like that, you're not going to meet your expectations because Tim Tebow is not going to give you that. I'm sorry. Tim Tebow at best is a backup quarterback. And that's what the Eagles and that's what these other teams should be looking at him for, as being in a backup role as opposed to being a starting role. So I don't think I can believe Chip Kelly completely when he released that statement and saying that Tim Tebow made progress and he wasn't good enough to be the third string quarterback. The third string quarterback. Think about it. That's not even the backup. That's not even the second quarterback. That's the third quarterback on the team. In case the second quarterback, the backup quarterback, goes out. You mean to tell me Tim Tebow wasn't good enough to be the third string quarterback? I mean, I'm not disagreeing and saying that Tim Tebow isn't good enough, because yeah, he's not good enough, but in the starting position role. I think if you give Tim Tebow time and you do have him as a third string quarterback, I think he could learn. I think he could learn from the game by watching it. And you could keep prepping with him. You could keep training with him. You could keep practicing with him until he gets better and better. But for Chip Kelly to say that, the reason why they released him was because he wasn't good enough to be a third string quarterback, I don't know about that. I don't know about all that. I mean, he said that he was making progress in the preseason. He had some decent performances, and his throwing motion got better. He said that. So if you're saying these things about Tim Tebow, then why would you release the guy? I'm not like I said, I'm not bashing Chip Kelly for releasing him, because I understand why he did it. But I just want to know the truth. I want to know if that's the real reasoning behind releasing Tim Tebow. Was that they really looked at him as, is he good enough to be the third string quarterback? I don't think they looked at it from that perspective or from that scenario. I think they were probably looking at Tim Tebow from the scenario and from the perspective of can he deliver for us as a starting quarterback? Because they look at his name, they look at his background, they look at the media, and they say, well, since Tim Tebow is getting all this hype and praise, we should probably evaluate this guy and look at him as a much bigger deal here in Philadelphia. And I'm not surprised if New England did that as well, 2 seasons ago when they signed him. Although New England, they would never consider starting Tim Tebow anyway, because they have Tom Brady. But I think that this is a trend now. It's a pattern with Tim Tebow, where whatever team he signs with, he's going to have bad luck, because all of these teams and all of these coaches are going to expect them to give them MVP-like performances, even in the preseason. And you're not going to get that out of Tim Tebow. You got to be patient with the guy. He's not your typical established quarterback that comes out of college and fits right away into your system with a few preseason games and a few practice and a few preparation. So that's the thing about Tim Tebow ultimately, is the fact that, these teams, they want established quarterbacks. And in the NFL, it's a what have you done for me now type of league, or what have you done for me lately kind of league. So they don't have time to sit around and build a Tim Tebow from the bottom to the top. They don't have time for that. They don't have time to rebuild. They don't have time to build up a quarterback. That's what college is for. They expect these quarterbacks to already have some sort of, I don't want to say experience, but some sort of knowledge on what being a quarterback is all about. They expect them to already know how to play at the quarterback position and how to play at a high level in the quarterback position when they come out of college. But with Tim Tebow, they have to start from scratch with this guy, because Tim Tebow he's not an established quarterback. He's not a quarterback that you could sign right away and tell yourself, he's ready to be the starting quarterback. And that's not what teams are looking for nowadays. Teams nowadays look for a quarterback that can throw, or that has a little bit of versatility when it comes to being a quarterback, with his feet or whatever. And Tim Tebow can provide the running game. Don't get me wrong, he has mobility, but more often than not, you're always going to need a throwing quarterback, a guy that can throw with his arm. And Tim Tebow, another thing about Tim Tebow is he's not a system quarterback as well. Because Tim Tebow was brought up when he played in college. The reason why he had so much success there was because, he would do these creative plays, and, he would make plays happen, and he was like a playmaker. But in the NFL, they're not asking for that. They're not looking for these creative or crazy-like plays, because in the NFL, you got to take things a little bit more seriously. In the NFL, you'll get exposed if you have that mentality of playing like you do in college, where you can make up any kind of play and get away with it. In college, it's completely different from the NFL. In the NFL, it's all about dominance. It's all about performance. It's all about consistency. It's all about throwing. It's all about passing. and it's all about in here. See, in college, Tim Tebow could, get away with a few creative plays and make things happen, but in the NFL, they want a quarterback. This is what I'm trying to say, basically. They want a quarterback that can fit their system. They're not looking for a quarterback that's going to come in and do crazy things, because that's not going to work. I'm sorry, but that's college football. The reason why college football is exciting is because you can do these creative plays and get away with more, because it's not taken. Well, I don't want to say it's not taken that seriously, but they don't have pro athletes there. They don't have pro athletes there, and things are much more lenient in college football. Where in the NFL, it's their way or no way at all. That's how it is in the NFL. And unfortunately for Tim Tebow, that's the problem. You got to grow with him as time goes by. You have to teach him. You have to mentor him. And teams are not patient enough to do that with Tim Tebow. So that's why he's put himself in this position now, where whatever team he signs with, they're going to expect immediate results from him because of his marketability, because of his name, and that's the curse in all of this, because Tim Tebow is a guy that you got to help out, you got to take your time with, and the NFL and the league is not meant for that. They want quarterbacks that can get it right away, that can click in and fit in right away. That's how the NFL works. That's how we live in the world of 2015. But Tim Tebow, unfortunately for you, there's no team like that out there for you right now. And, the NFL has evolved and changed so much over the years that all these quarterbacks that come out of college now, they're expected to be very high valued. And for you, Tim Tebow, the reason why Tim Tebow is so high valued now, it's not because he came out of college, but it's because of what he did in Denver and that little streak he had going there. And then after that, Tebow time was born, and now everybody looks at that and they think that Tim Tebow can play how he played in Denver the whole time. And if they don't get that out of Tim Tebow, they think that he's not going to live up to expectations, so they release him. But I feel like if Tim Tebow learned from the bench, he learned from being a backup and watching the games, I think he would make more progress. I really think that he could get better. But the thing is, these teams release him, like I've said a million times on this show already. So I think that Tim Tebow should pretty much just call it a career now, because I don't see any other team signing him ever again after this. I mean, how longer is it going to take for Tim Tebow to finally realize that no team will want to be patient with him and building him up from bottom to top? That's going to be something that Tim Tebow has to work on in his own time, I guess, because it looks like in the NFL, unfortunately, is willing to do that for Tim Tebow. So the best I can say is he's got to do this himself now and learn how to play the game of football individually and not with a team. That's the only way he could probably save his own career. But other than that, I think his career is pretty much done. I think his style of play was meant for college at best, and his style of play just doesn't fit with the NFL. And it's not to say that he sucks. It's not to say that he's an awful player, because he's certainly not. He's a great person. He's a great player. But it's just that his style does not fit, does not bend in with the NFL. So, I don't know how long it's going to take him to realize this. And I appreciate his courage and his determination for always wanting to fight and take up a new challenge and try to overcome obstacles. But there's got to be a point in time where you just got to look at the reality and realize the situation at hand and realize that no team will want to be patient with Tim Tebow at this point. So that's pretty much going to wrap up my thoughts about this situation here. But I really don't think that Chip Kelly was being 100% here, saying that Tim Tebow wasn't good enough to be the third string quarterback, because a third string quarterback is pretty much non-existent on a team most of the time anyway. So what is a third string quarterback? Define that for me. How good does a third string quarterback have to be? because a third string quarterback, if you're a third string quarterback, that means your standards shouldn't be that high for that person to begin with, because he's not even the backup quarterback. And the backup quarterback I can understand as having to be pretty damn good, because he's kind of competing with the starting quarterback just in case the starting quarterback gets injured. But a third string quarterback, I mean, how good does a third string quarterback have to be? In most teams, you only need 2 quarterbacks anyway. You never hear of third string quarterbacks, because quarterbacks don't get injured that often. It's rare when that happens. So, and I was touching on this earlier, but I find the whole idea of having 3 quarterbacks in one team stupid to begin with. So I don't see Chip Kelly's point there in saying that he wasn't good enough to be the third string quarterback. I definitely think that they were making a bigger deal out of this for Tim Tebow. They were looking more into the Tim Tebow situation, and it wasn't about being the third string quarterback. It probably had to do a lot more with what can he be an alternative quarterback for us in case our starting quarterback goes down. Because come on, you're gonna sit there and tell me that they signed Tim Tebow and just look at him as a third string quarterback? No. They obviously signed him for bigger purposes. They had an agenda with Tim Tebow, and it didn't work out, and that's why they released him. Now, from this point of view, I do defend Philly and I do understand where they're coming from, because they also released him to create more depth for their roster. That way they have more backup roles to fit for other positions that need backup roles, like a running back or a wide receiver or a tight end. So that's another reason why they released Tim Tebow, because they felt he was probably taking up space for the depth on the roster, and that makes sense, But don't tell me that he wasn't good enough to be the third string quarterback and use that as your excuse to release him. Just say you didn't want him because he didn't meet your higher expectations of what you expected out of Tim Tebow. So those are ultimately my thoughts on this Tim Tebow saga. Hopefully, Tim Tebow moves on from this, and I wish him the best, because I certainly don't want to wish him any bad luck or anything like that. He's a great guy, and I'm sure he's going to take this to heart, and I'm sure he's going to learn from this, just like he learns from everything. No one's perfect in life. So that's pretty much what I have to say, guys. And peace out. And once again, we're days away from the NFL. Stay tuned for The Drive, episode 2. It's going to be great.